Your team is lying to you right now. It's not because they're dishonest, but because you taught them to. I want you to picture this. A director walks into her Monday morning team meeting. Everyone looks good. Updates are clean. No red flags. She leaves the meeting thinking that things are running well. 2 weeks later, she finds out that a major client issue had been brewing the entire time. Her team knew they had been handling it quietly among themselves, hoping that they could fix it before she had to know. They were not trying to deceive her. They just didn't believe that she would want to hear about it until they had a solution. And they learned that from her. That's the part that's hard to sit with. The silence from your team is not random, it's a response to something. And today, I want to show you what actually happens and what that something usually is. Okay. But first, I want to welcome you to the Quiet Mic. I'm Natasha, and this channel is for leaders who want real tools that work in the real world, no fluff. So let's go ahead and get into it. Three things that I've seen play out consistently when a team reaches the point where they stop telling their leader the truth. And at least one of them is probably happening on your team right now as we speak. Here's what makes this so hard to catch. It doesn't happen all at once. It is gradual. A leader reacts badly to bad news once, and people take that information and they file it away. A leader dismisses an idea and someone stops sharing. A leader gets defensive when they're questioned, and the team quietly decides that it's not worth it. You see, each small moment teaches your team what's safe to say around you. And on the surface, everything still looks fine. People are nodding, updates sound good, but the real conversations are happening in the group chat, at lunch, after the meeting ends, everywhere except in front of you. And that's what we're going to get into today. I'm going to talk about three things that I've seen happen when it gets to that point. Thing number one that I've seen, they stop bringing you problems early enough to actually fix them. Now, this is the one that costs organizations the most, and it's the one that's hardest to see from the inside. When a team trusts their leader, they bring problems early. When something's going sideways with a project, when a client relationship is getting complicated, when a process isn't working the way that it should, they flag it. They say something because they believe that their leader wants to know and that they will handle that information well. But when that trust erodes, even slightly, the calculus of the equation changes. Now, instead of bringing a problem early, they're going to try to fix it themselves first. They are going to wait until they have a solution before they mention that there was any type of an issue at all. And sometimes I'll be honest, it works out. But a lot of the time it doesn't. And by the time the leader finds out something went wrong, it's gone from something that was a small problem that had an easy fix to it to now a big problem that's now significantly harder to manage. I've watched this play out with a leadership team that I worked very closely with. In that situation, a project was running behind, and the team lead knew it 2 weeks before the deadline. 2 weeks. But instead of flagging it immediately, they spent those 2 weeks trying to make up the time. By the time that the director found out, there were 3 days left and no good options were viable. What could have been a very manageable conversation 2 weeks earlier became a crisis at the worst possible moment. And then when I later on talked to the team lead afterwards about why they hadn't said something sooner, the answer was very honest. They told me that the last time they had flagged a problem early, the director had reacted in a way that made them feel like they were the problem. So this time, they just waited until they had something better to say. And from what I've seen play out from that pattern more times than I can count, is this. When leaders punish the messenger, they don't stop getting bad news. The bad news doesn't stop. They just stop getting it early enough to do something or anything about it. Okay. And that now leads us into the second observation. They start managing you instead of talking to you. Now, this is the shift that I want you to really sit with because it's the one that changes the entire dynamic of a team. There is a difference between a team member who talks to their leader and a team member who manages their leader. And once you see it, you'll recognize it immediately. A team member who wants to talk to their leader will share information openly. They say what they think, they push back when they disagree, they bring things up because they trust that what their leader is going to receive, they can handle. They can handle the real picture. Now, a team member who manages their leader carefully controls what information comes forward. They think about how their leader will react before they say anything. They frame things strategically. They leave things out. They tell their leader what their leader tends to respond well to rather than what's actually happening. And here's the thing, when a team is managing their leader, they're still showing up. They're still performing. They're still hitting most of their targets. So from the outside, everything looks totally fine. But what's happening is that you've lost access to the real picture. You're making decisions based on a curated version of reality, and you don't even know it. And I had a leader once tell me that their team had great communication. And then I sat in on a few of their team meetings. What I saw was a room full of people who were very good at saying things that sounded like information without actually sharing anything that mattered. Every answer was carefully constructed. It was perfect. Every update was positive or neutrally framed. There was no friction, no disagreement, no real conversation, if I'm being honest. Just a very well rehearsed performance of what good communication actually looks like. That team wasn't communicating, they were managing. And what I want you to understand from having watched that pattern play out across organizations of every size is this: a team that manages you has already decided that you can't handle the truth. The question is whether they're right. And that brings us to the last, but certainly not least, observation. Number three, the real conversations start happening everywhere except in front of you. Now, this one is the hardest to hear. I'm going to be honest with you. It's very hard to hear, but I think it's the most important one that needs to be said. When a team stops feeling safe around you with their leader, that honesty, it doesn't disappear. It just moves. It moves from you. It's going to go into the group chat that you're not in. It's going to go into the conversations that happen after the meeting end. It's going to go into the lunch table that stops when you walk by. You see, the team is still being honest with each other. They're still processing what's really happening. They're still sharing their real read on situations, on decisions, on the direction things are going. They're just not doing any of that with you. So they're sharing amongst themselves. They're sharing with others, just not you. And that means you're leading a team that you don't actually have full visibility into. And you're making decisions without information that will make your decision making easier. You're missing concerns that could help you course correct before something goes sideways. And you're probably wondering why things feel a little off, even though you can't quite put your finger on what it is. That feeling isn't the gap between the conversations your team is having and the conversations they're having with you. What I've seen over and over again in organizations where this has taken a hold of is this: the most dangerous place for a leader to be is comfortable while their team is struggling in silence. Okay. Now, I want to say something to the leader who just recognized something in what we've talked about today. Come closer. Let's talk. Maybe you thought of a specific person on your team who used to speak up more than they do now. Maybe you thought of a meeting that felt a little too smooth, a little too agreeable. Maybe you thought of a problem that came to you later than it should have, and now you're wondering what else you don't know yet. That recognition is not comfortable, being very honest. But it's important because the leaders who build teams that actually tell them the truth are not the ones who demand honesty. They're the ones who made it safe, who responded to bad news without shooting the messenger, who stayed curious when they were questioned instead of getting defensive, who created enough trust that the real conversation could happen in the room instead of after it. That's a skill, and it's one that you can build starting with your very next interaction with your team. You don't have to overhaul everything. You just have to start responding differently to the moments that matter. And those moments are coming, okay? Probably sooner than you think. The leader who can handle the truth will always know more than the one who can't. So here's what I want you to walk away with today. Your team's honesty with you is not a given. It's something that gets built in or eroded one interaction at a time. And the good news is that the same way it erodes, it can now be rebuilt. And that's something that starts with how you respond the next time that someone brings you something hard. Okay. The next time that someone pushes back, the next time that the news is bad. I want you to stay curious, stay steady, make it safe to have the truth told to you because the team that tells the truth to you is the most valuable thing that you can build as a leader. Everything else is going to depend on that. Now, before you close this out, I want you to go ahead and drop a comment and tell me, has there ever been a moment where you realized that your team wasn't being fully honest with you? You don't have to share me all the details. I don't need that. I just want to know it resonated. And I do read the comments, by the way. And if this episode gave you something useful, go ahead and share it with a leader in your life who needs to hear the message. It's the best way to help this channel to grow. Now, I also want to tell you something is coming very, very soon that I know you're going to want to be a part of. Okay. So if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe so that you don't miss when this information drops. Okay. I have something new for you here every Thursday. And I want to leave you with the same thought as always. Remember, the quiet ones move the room. So let your quiet speak loud. Until next time.